All right, so it has been a few months since I had my last upload. I have since been in my fall semester and taking new classes, and so I took a little bit of a break there, but I am back for you guys because I just finished up my last prerequisite class that I need to apply for my nursing program. I am finished with the prerequisite classes, and fortunately, thankfully, I can proudly say that I got an A in microbiology. So I want to give you my tips and tricks, things that I did, things that I didn't do, and how I was able to get that grade for this class. Now, for my nursing program in particular, you only need to have 3 prerequisite courses completed to apply. You have to have A&P 1 and 2 and then microbiology. So this is that last class that I needed to get out of the way so that I would be eligible prerequisite wise to then apply for the program. I plan on applying in February to hopefully be able to be accepted and then start my nursing program in fall of 2021. But we'll see. It seems far away, but it also seemed really far whenever I started my prerequisite classes, and that time just flew by. So I know that this time is going to fly by as well. Just have to stay busy. But with that being said, here are some tips that I learned along the way whenever I took microbiology. So first and foremost, if it's possible, I would try to take A&P 1 and 2 before you take microbiology. I believe this because I think microbiology is overall a bit of an easier class than anatomy and physiology classes are from my personal experience. And additionally, I found that having the knowledge and the terminology prior from my A&P 1 and 2 classes absolutely helped me with microbiology. Microbiology has similar terms, especially to A&P 2. Not as much as A&P 1, but A&P 2 and microbiology use a lot of similar terms. And whenever I had this prior knowledge going into my microbiology class, I didn't have to navigate both all of these new terms and also their application in terms of how they affect other organisms in the environment and human beings and things like that. So by having that knowledge, I was able to cut down just slightly on the new things that I was learning and the new information that was coming in because I was already kind of familiar with some of that terminology that was also used in microbiology. That was super, super helpful. I didn't find myself nearly as confused or like floundering for some answers and some clarification because I was already somewhat familiar with a lot of terms that was used in the class. So if possible, I would try to take A&P before you take microbiology. I know it's not always possible. I know sometimes people combine semesters where they take both an A&P course and microbiology, and that's fine. But if you had the ability to, I personally would try to do A&P and then microbiology after. The second thing, and I also suggest this in my other 2 videos about A&P and HESI, Quizlet. Use Quizlet. Quizlet is my absolute best friend when I am preparing for exams, especially. Not necessarily like studying the chapters and doing like the homework throughout the week, but studying for the exams, which are usually the biggest part of your grade. Quizlet helped me so much. Fortunately, all of my professors have always given me exams and reviews before the actual test, which is helpful. Except for my lab instructor on A&P 2. That was horrific and a nightmare. But anyway, but generally speaking, my professors have given me reviews before the exam. I take those reviews and I make a cumulative Quizlet out of those reviews, and I put down every definition with every term if they provide me a list of definitions that I need to know, and the concepts that they have, I break them down into multiple different flashcards. So depending on the concept, I make sure that every step along the way is defined. It has pictures if I can find them. It is really, really clear that if I go through that Quizlet, I'm going to be able to thoroughly understand the concepts and I can just review them, especially right before the test. I always review the Quizlet, a few times a couple days before, and then I review the Quizlet again right before I take the exam so that that information is fresh on my brain. I always review the Quizlet right before I take the exam. I think Quizlet is $20 for the year. It is not very expensive. It is absolutely worth it. If there's one study tool I would recommend for you, aside from YouTube, which is free, is to get Quizlet for the $20 a year. Utilize that tool as much as you can because it is super helpful and you don't have to physically write down on actual flashcards. Like that is, I know some people like learn better physically writing things down, and I do for certain things, but flashcards is not one of those things. I absolutely love Quizlet. The third thing that I would suggest to you is to utilize any supplemental instruction that you can get. So generally speaking, each of my courses have had some kind of supplemental instruction or a teacher's assistant that does like weekly sessions or something like that where you can ask questions and get more information. If that's available to you, I would absolutely utilize that resource. When I did have questions about concepts that were not clear to me and I wasn't able to find an answer very easily on the internet or YouTube or something, I would reach out to my supplemental instructor because not only are they familiar with the information, but they're also generally familiar with how that professor grades and what kind of answer that they're looking for. So like you might have a concept and you might kind of generally understand what that concept is and how to be able to verbally explain it. But if you talk to a supplemental instructor who's worked with the professor before, they might be able to give you some kind of an idea of how the question might be phrased. Not so that you can just like memorize an answer and cheat or something, but that you can be more familiar with the kind of information that the professor wants you to focus on because it's likely the kind of questions and the kind of format that the exams might have. That's another thing. Supplemental instructors usually know the format of the exam. Professors will usually tell you as well, but the point that I'm trying to get at here is that supplemental instructors and teachers' assistants are more familiar with what you might need to really narrow your focus on and the kind of explanations and the kind of answers that the professor might be looking for. So it just kind of helps you narrow your focus and become more familiar with what you need to focus on the most for your exam. The next suggestion that I have for you is to utilize YouTube. Now, I am not I'm a visual learner. I cannot just like read something and then expect the information to stick or make any sense. It's so strange. Like, do you ever watch Netflix and if you don't have the subtitles on, it's like none of the words make sense to you? Does that happen to anybody else? Because that happens to me. I absolutely have to watch with subtitles. And the same for me goes for learning, which interestingly, ironically, is kind of the opposite. But the point is, when I'm learning, I can't just read. I have to have the visual to go along with it. I have to have the words and I have to have the visual because otherwise it's just not going to stick. If I just read a book, it's not going to stick in my mind. And even if the words are there, I'm not going to be able to physically understand how this process works unless I see it like in an animation or a diagram or something like that. So YouTube is really, really helpful in that regards. And there are tons of videos on most pre-nursing subjects, including anatomy and physiology, including microbiology. I mean, there is a wealth of information out there. So if you just look it up, you are likely to find something that'll help you explain the concept that you're trying to understand. Lastly, my last suggestion is to reiterate the information, aka pretend to be the teacher when you can. Sometimes you gotta, lay out some stuffed animals on a bed and pretend to be the professor and explain the information that you've learned in order for you to better understand that information yourself. And I know that seems ridiculous and I know that might seem silly. If you don't have stuffed animals, use a family member, use a friend. If you don't have a family member or a friend, use a stuffed animal. You need to be able to verbally state the information and explain the information, because when you can explain the concepts that you're studying, you can definitely be able to more critically analyze them and think about them more critically whenever you're physically taking the test. So verbal explanation, being able to state the information to someone else and have it make sense, is a pretty good way to determine whether or not the information is in your head and you can actually work through it logically and reasonably. It takes a lot to be able to convey ideas in your head out verbally, and especially in a way that a stranger like your family member or your friend or whoever would be able to understand it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you physically have to use different processes in your brain to get those ideas out verbally and have them make logical sense. The point of that being, and the whole reason that that even applies to your class, is that if you can do that and have it make sense, then you have a pretty good chance of being able to identify those concepts in an exam and be able to select the right answer, because you know how it works. You know how that process works. You know how to break down that concept. And so you have a greater chance of being able to select the right answer on your exam, because it is pretty solid in your brain, that information. The last suggestion that I have for you is to just manage your time. And I know that goes without saying, but honestly, I am a procrastinator through and through. If I can, find a way to shift my schedule and, I can plan out my whole week where I say I'm going to do this homework on this day and this homework on this day, but then I get a little bit lazy with it and I tell myself that I can, push the homework off to a different day. That always hurts me in the end. Procrastinating always, always, always bites me in the butt at the end, especially when it comes close to exam time and crunch time and things like that. And you never know when something unexpected is going to happen. Like, I have 2 toddlers. You never know when someone's going to get sick. You never know if someone's going to get hurt. You never know if it's just not going to be a day that you can put the mommy stuff aside or, kind of put it off and focus on the school. So you have to prepare for the unexpected. Even if you don't have kids, you have to prepare for the unexpected. You can't procrastinate. You have to manage your time. And the best way that I have found that I can do this is twofold. The first thing is to plan out my week a week ahead of time. I print out the syllabus or the class schedule that the professor provides to me, and I look at it and I compare that to the schedule that I have if I have to do stuff with the kids or family or, whatever. I'm not really doing much of that with, everything that's going on in the world. I'm not doing much extra stuff, but if in the event I had something or I needed to go grocery shopping, I can coordinate what I need to do for school with what I need to do in my mommy life, real life, rest of my life that isn't school. And then on top of that, I need to give myself incentives. So for example, if I know that I have a homework assignment that I need to work on, but I could do tomorrow because I really, really want to go out and get the kids ice cream or something, whatever it is, I tell myself I can't do that thing until I get the homework done. I just can't. My car just won't start, or I won't be able to find my keys or something, I just do not reward myself unless I finish the homework. And that doesn't happen every time. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't happen every time. Sometimes I still procrastinate. Sometimes I'm still lazy. We're all human, okay? I'm not a perfect person that's always working on school all the time because I just love it so much. No. But what I'm trying to get at is, generally speaking, I try to reward myself for doing the homework instead of giving myself the reward first and saying, I'll work on homework later. Do you know what I mean? Tell yourself in your mind, your credit card is not going to work until you turn in this assignment, whatever it has to be to just get it done. Because once it's done, I feel so much better. If I go out and I go get something or go out and get ice cream or whatever it is, I just feel that relief knowing that A, I was productive today, and B, I don't have to do that thing some other day because it's done and it's turned in. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, guys, with all of that being said, none of this is going to give you an A. You still have to put in the work. You still have to show up. And if you are determined and if you want to make this work, it's going to work. Even if, let's say, you've taken microbiology or you've taken other prerequisite classes before and you didn't do well, don't let that define your ability to succeed in the future. If you didn't get a passing grade, if you didn't get the grade you wanted, keep trying, keep pushing, because I promise you, if you show up, if you do the work, if you have the determination, even if you have failed before or didn't succeed exactly the way you wanted to, you can make it work. I have complete faith in you. I know that you can do it. I know that sometimes times are hard and that might have affected your grades before or your ability to perform before, but you are here now and you can show up now. Do not let yourself be distracted by previous failures or inability to perform the way you wanted to, because I know that you can do it. That is all I have for you today. I am not really doing any more prerequisite classes since, I'm kind of done with that for now. But I have lots of pre-nursing ideas that I want to make videos on. So if you have suggestions, definitely let me know. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna, put stuff out when I can, when I feel like I have something helpful that might be helpful for other people. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.